I hereby order the Minister of Defense and the Chief of the General Staff to place the Russian Army Deterrence Force on combat alert.
As Russian troops face unanticipated setbacks and losses in Ukraine, President Vladimir Putin is waving his biggest sword, putting his nuclear weapons on high alert.
In Russia, even with threats from Vladimir Putin, the protests rage on in Moscow.
As Russian troops push ahead with their massive assault against Ukraine's major cities, breaking into Kharkiv before being repelled, destroying an oil depot near Kiev, and attacking the city with more airstrikes overnight.
On the ground in Ukraine, the locals show no fear, whether it's those in the defense forces or those in the streets telling Russian soldiers to F off and go home.
In Kiev this morning, we saw the aftermath of what Ukrainian soldiers tell us was a Russian assault they managed to stop.
His truck was clearly carrying a lot of ammunition. All around here, there are thousands and thousands of burned out bullets.
Top officials of leading NATO countries are making aggressive statements about our country.
In Toronto, Canadians came out in droves to protest as well.
Therefore, I'm ordering the Minister of Defense and the Chief of the General Staff to put the strategic nuclear forces on special alert.
In Boston, protests against the war surface.
Would Putin really use them? Today's special alert, more presidential muscle flexing.
Ukrainian troops are surprising the world with their resistance and resilience. Ukrainians lining up for food remain in good spirits.
This is not Russia's war. This is not a war by the Russian people and the Ukrainian people. This is yet another military adventure, military crime by an unelected, unaccountable, authoritarian, and frankly, increasingly deranged dictator in the Kremlin by the name of Vladimir Putin.
As we hit day 5 of Russia invading neighboring Ukraine, the second largest country in Europe, the sports world continues to react to these atrocities. In the sport of judo, it appears Vladimir Putin found a strong love and kinship. CNN reported he is not only a huge fan who takes in judo matches, but also a black belt in the sport. After attending the Eastern Economic Forum in Vladivostok, a city in Russia, Putin took in a judo tournament. He even stayed to congratulate and applaud those on the medal stand. Take it from one Russian man who spoke of Putin's influence on him, specifically in the sport.
Judo даже, можно сказать, культ в нашей стране, потому что, президент говорит о том, что он мастер спорта по дзюдо, и многие на него равняются. Я сам пошел в дзюдо, потому что у нас президент России занимается дзюдо, и я на него равняюсь, потому что он мастер спорта.
In Japan, after what Reuters called a grueling 3-day summit of the Group of 8 industrialized nations, Putin visited a local sports center, removing his jacket and shoes. Putin went onto the judo mat to face his opponent, a Japanese boy, whom he threw. He then allowed himself to be thrown onto the mat. Putin told the assembled young judo fans to persevere with their sport because it brings people together. Oh, the irony, right? Because, you know. He has been called perhaps the world's most famous judo black belt by media outlets alike. Foreign Policy even wrote of the influence judo has had on him, not just from the takedowns, but how the sport linked him with billionaires Arkady and Boris Rotenberg, who learned judo alongside Putin as a teen. That relationship turned into a business empire built on lucrative government contracts. They write on, Gennady Timchenko, sanctioned billionaire, former head of commodity trading firm Gunvor, was another old sparring partner and is still honorary chair of St. Petersburg's judo club. Deputy Prime Minister Yuri Trutnev co-founded the Russian Union of Martial Arts with Russian Atomic Agency head Sergei Kirenko, a fellow aficionado. In 2009, after a spot of sparring with some Russians judokas, he offered to join the national team. And the year before that, he released a DVD, Let's Learn Judo with Vladimir Putin. And yes, if you were at all curious on the nature of the DVD or of its availability, look no further than the time machine style website of YouTube. This, by the way, is the cover of the DVD. In 2004, he also released a book called Judo, History, Theory, Practice. According to The Guardian, the co-author of another book is a man you heard previously, that being Arkady Rodenberg. They were used in a way that can only be taken as pro-Putin propaganda, as the distribution of his book went into the hands of an alleged 7 million school children. Rodenberg's companies were awarded at least $7 billion worth of contracts for the 2014 Sochi Winter Olympics, and he won a $3 billion contract to build a bridge between Russia and the Crimea Peninsula it annexed in 2014. After a purge of school textbooks in 2014, Enlightenment reportedly won 60 to 70% of new textbook contracts. In September 2006, he became the honorary president of the European Judo Union, that being Putin, and in 2010 he received an honorary diploma, Doctor in Judo, from South Korea's Yenin University. As the Wall Street Journal wrote in 2019, Mr. Putin's sport is not chess but judo. The Russian president has admitted that he was a hooligan as a child, but that martial arts got him off the streets. It was a tool to assert myself in the pack. He credits judo with teaching him discipline and a specific outlook on life. In 1976, Leningrad's evening newspaper hailed the 23-year-old judoist Vladimir Putin, who had won a prestigious campaign and been elevated to the rank of champion. Thus, when news broke of judo's effect on Putin, this followed. Vladimir Putin temporarily lost his most senior official position in world sports. The International Judo Federation cited the ongoing war conflict in Ukraine for suspending Putin's honorary president status. The IJF is rare among Olympic sports bodies for using the word war to describe Russia's invasion of Ukraine ordered by Putin on Thursday. Others have used phrases such as escalation of conflict, though, as the CBC notes, there is Putin crony Rotenberg, who remains on the IDJ Executive Committee as development manager. Derek Hawkins of the Washington Post noted, his alleged martial arts prowess certainly fits with the machismo he projects to the world, a perfect complement to the portraits of him posing shirtless in military fatigues and the tall tales of him wrestling bears and Siberian tigers with tranquilizer darts. But is Putin really the master he's made out to be? No, says Benjamin Witz, the editor of the national security blog Lawfare. Witz, who happens to be a martial arts aficionado himself, has chided Putin as a fraud and phony, and is trying to call his bluff by challenging Putin to a fight in any location where Putin lacks the authority to have him arrested. In a Facebook post titled, "Why Won't Vladimir Putin Fight Me?" Witz put it more bluntly, Putin is a fraud martial artist. He only fights people who are in his power, and they are all taking falls for him. In recent years, Putin has received honorary martial arts awards, bestowed not so much in recognition of his actual skills as for his advocacy. In 2014, an international karate organization awarded him an 8th degree black belt for his work promoting a form of full contact karate in Russia. The previous year, he was made a grandmaster of Taekwondo by the World Taekwondo Federation after a visit to South Korea, even though he doesn't even practice the damn sport. The Independent noted at the time that he now ranks higher than martial arts expert and action movie star and Republican Chuck Norris. RT and other state-funded media have enthusiastically promoted those honors and others at every turn, weaving an almost superhero-like persona of Putin that revolves in part around his mastery of martial arts. Who needs bodyguards when you're this good at self-defense? Asked a state-sponsored media outlet reporter, RT, in a 2008 news clip over video of Putin leg sweeping an opponent on the sparring mat. Vladimir Putin shows he's a politician not to be messed with. Witz doesn't buy it, and his proposal to fight Putin is not a joke, he says. Witz even wrote in a piece titled, "I'll fight Putin anytime, any place he can't have me arrested," the following: for all his displays of the crudest forms of masculinity, Putin only fights people who are in his power, whom he can have arrested, whose lives he can ruin, and I think they're all taking falls for him. In fact, they're not really fighting him at all. These displays of masculinity play an important role in Putin's image domestically. As Brookings scholar and Putin biographer Fiona Hill explained in a conversation on the Lawfare podcast, quote, "It's all in the first instance about public imaging. It's meant to create connections with very clearly defined parts of his constituent base inside of Russia. It dates from early in his rise to power when he needed to portray himself as tough in response to the weakness, including physical weakness, of his predecessor. But there's a very dark side to these displays, which are deeply connected to his aggression against his neighbors, his repression of dissidents, and his grotesque treatment of the LGBTQ plus community at home. That is, his self-presentation as a really tough guy who uses fighting arts to assert his manhood, parades around shirtless, and personally tranquilizes tigers, is fully consistent with his behavior and designed, I think, at some level to justify it. The persona, that is, demands of others exactly what Putin's policies also demand: submission and obedience.